They don't understand.
Welcome. I appreciate everyone here today. Thank you, Perry. Thank you, Zoe, John, team members, Downtown Street Team. Thank you for having me here today. It is truly, truly an honor to be here today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. For those of you who do not remember and for the first time here, I am Alicia F. Griffin. I am founder and pastor of AFG Ministry, of Faithful God Ministry. I'm also an inspirational influencer. Does anybody know what that is?
Yes.
What is it?
Inspirational influence.
Yes. Do you know what it is?
That's what you encourage people in to do that.
Exactly. I inspire. Basically, a life coach. It's basically a life coach. But
Like if somebody has something going on inside their head or something, you could get in there and straighten it out for them.
well, yeah, no.
Try to.
No.
Well, I'm asking, I don't know, I'm asking.
You took it to
I'm asking, I don't know. I'm asking, I don't know. Because,
That's me, Kenny.
hey, people have different things going
Come see
on,
me
you know?
after the-
Yeah, no, I get you. I get you.
Come see me, I'll get it.
By you here, minister, I got a minister that, I'm not finished.
Wait, yeah,
I'm not finished. I'm not finished.
One at a time,
I
guys.
got a minister that helped me with different problems that I have.
Yes.
So he dealt with me for a couple of years.
Yes.
And I go to his church
Correct.
and he's on different levels, you know what I mean? Not
Correct.
that maybe you. Hey, I'm
I
asking.
can work with you on different levels.
I'm working.
But,
I'm asking. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
But I mainly inspire, encourage, and I'm a life coach. So.
Well, I'll tell you, I would never know it unless I asked.
Oh,
Thank you.
no, I get you.
Thank you.
That is definitely anytime.
Thank you.
But yes, I'm also an author of Makings of Our Spiritual Blueprint, my book. And it's a short read spiritual book, and I brought one here for each of you today for free. If you would like, it's on the table. Yes. Short little read.
Oh, good.
And but my goal as an inspirational influencer, basically like coach, is to encourage and inspire people by promoting self-love and self-confidence.
Amen.
And I feel the first step towards loving our inner beings, right? Loving our inner beings is transforming our thought process.
That won't
Right?
change.
Yes. Before I start with my talk, I want to start with a short, funny story. There was a minister who decided that he wanted to use a visual demonstration for one of his sermons. So the night before his sermon, he went into his backyard and he dug up 4 worms. And he brought the worms back into his house, into the kitchen, and he had 4 jars. And each jar was filled with something different. So for the first worm, he put it in a jar filled with alcohol. In the second jar, for the second worm, he put it in a jar filled with cigarette smoke. And then for the third worm, he put it in a jar filled with chocolate. And for the fourth worm, he put it in a jar filled with, I just drew a blank. He put it in a jar filled with good, clean soil. So the next day was his sermon, and he put the 4 jars on the podium, and he proceeded to do a sermon with his visual demonstration right there on the podium. And as he was finishing up his sermon, he held up the 4 jars to show the results of the worms. The first worm in the jar filled with alcohol was dead. The second worm filled with the jar filled with cigarette smoke was also dead. The third worm in the jar filled with chocolate was dead as well. The fourth worm in the jar filled with good, clean soil was alive. So as he held up the 4th jar, he asked his congregation, "What can we learn from this lesson based on my sermon?" And someone from that far of the church yelled out, "As long as you drink, smoke, eat plenty of chocolate, you won't get worms." And it the church service right there.
That's the way it thinks.
A couple of questions. Do you believe that your thoughts are powerful?
Yes.
Yes. Do you believe that you are in total control of your thoughts?
No.
No. No.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
You are somewhere. You are. You are.
Not all the time.
No, you have no control.
You
You have control. When you sleep, then your mind is just study going. It don't
You're supposed
stop.
to be
Your mind don't sleep. You may go to sleep, but your mind ain't go to sleep. You see what I'm saying? It's constantly going.
Okay, today I'm going to talk about the process of transformative transfer, right?
Transformative what?
Transformative transfer of our thoughts,
Okay.
right? Because our thoughts are the largest battlefield that we
Yes.
have,
Mhm.
correct?
Correct.
Some of us wake up in a battle,
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
right?
Right.
And some of us end our day in the same battle along with additional battles, correct?
Probably.
Mixed reception.
Probably.
Okay, that sounds good too.
You're a heckler.
He is. I don't mind him. I don't mind. He's good.
It's good.
Okay, I got a question.
I'm a
I got question.
sociologist.
You are a sociologist. I got a question. I got a question for you. Who likes to garden?
Oh, I do.
I grew up.
Because I love to do
Yeah,
it.
garden.
Okay, I don't know why I'm raising my hand. But, so, do you have a green thumb? You have a green
Yes,
thumb?
yes.
You have a green thumb? You have a green thumb?
Yeah, running my family. My grandmother had.
But that doesn't
I didn't
answer.
have it. Sometimes
So
you
anyway,
have
so for me, I'm a sometimer green thumber, right? I'm a sometimer green thumber, where maybe my garden gets maybe like a total of 2 weeks from me, right, of attention, right? I used to be, yeah, okay, don't judge.
See, what stopped me from growing tomatoes and stuff, my mother taught me how to do it in her garden. Because every time they think everything's nice, at night, the worms get on it at night, and they eat the greens up and the stuff in the
Yeah.
garden. So I stopped that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
But you gotta listen to this, just listen to this.
okay.
I'm not talking about gardens. I want to hear that afterwards. My husband probably wants to hear that. He's growing tomatoes right now, so he probably definitely wants to hear that. So, but at one day as my husband was attending, because he's the green thumber,
Yeah.
right? So he'll definitely hear that. But one day as he was attending our flowers and our vegetables and everything, I started using the analogy of gardening
Yeah.
to compare it to our thought process,
So here we go.
right? Right? So imagine with me, if you will.
Yes.
Just imagine with me. We have, our our mind has a mental thought garden inside of it, right? Inside our mental thought garden, we have containers and pots inside our mental thought garden, filled with just beautiful flowers, different colors, different shapes, whatever you like, right? They're all in containers inside our mental thought garden. And then there's a large area in our mental thought garden as well, right? But let's talk about the containers first. I like to think that our containers in our mental thought garden, there are positive emotions and feelings. There are positive thoughts, right? And what we've done is we put them into containers. We compartmentalize all of our good stuff, our good yield, our good harvest, everything that contributes to our mental well-being and wellness. We put in containers inside of our garden. And see, what happens with that when you put your positive emotions inside containers is that you have to manually take care of them, right? You have to manually go and feed them, right? You got to manually take care of them.
Garden, not with negativity.
Right, with not with
That
negative, no,
was
because they're
smart.
positive emotions.
Right. You got
Right?
positive.
So that
You
right.
wanna
the
stay
emotions.
positive.
Right. You want to stay
You
positive.
don't want
But
mix
you
it
have to
with negative.
remember, but see the thing is that you have to remember to take care of them. So for example, in my front yard, I have 3 plants. 2 palm tree plants. And then a jade plant, right? In my front yard, in containers, in pots, nice pretty pots, right? I have to manually remember to go take care of them and water them. Meaning, I don't do it often. And the only time that I do it is if I have leftover bottled waters inside my car, so that way I can unscrew it, dump the water on there, and then recycle the bottle.
Right.
Out of convenience, right? And that's the same for us. We only tend to take care of ourselves when it's convenient for us to do it. We don't automatically do it, correct? We limit our positive emotions and our thoughts to containers. We limit them, right? Who likes sharks? You like sharks? I told you somebody. Yeah, sharks. You know
I don't
what
like
the man-
sharks.
Okay.
I like dogs.
I like sharks.
I don't like sharks. So, I read an interesting fact about sharks. If you put a shark inside of a fish tank, it'll grow about 8 inches, right? But inside of an ocean, it'll grow 8 feet or more, right? Meaning, and it's the same thing for our thoughts, right? In our containers, we are limiting the size of what it will grow, of our self-growth, our self-development, our self-care, our self-love, our self-wellness and self-being. We are limiting them to the size of those pots. Now you might be asking, well, why are our positive emotions all in the pot, right? Because in the larger area, now we're moving from the pots to the larger area. Everybody still with me?
Yeah.
We're visualizing. Everybody still with me? So in this large area, it's all open area, right? But this larger area is a hot mess right now because the larger area has weeds.
I knew you were going there. I knew you were going there. Weeds are somewhere in there. Okay.
Right?
Right.
The larger area has weeds in there, right? And the weeds are all the negative emotions, the negative thoughts, right? The negative feelings, right? Like anxiety, stress, worry,
Kills all the good plants.
discouragement, correct?
Depression.
Correct. Depression. Correct. All the bad stuff, right? And all the negative stuff. And what we've done is we've allowed for those weeds to grow there. Where we're continuously feeding the weeds. We're continuously feeding them the negative emotions. We feed them before we feed our containers. Because again, we got to manually feed our containers, right? We have to manually remember to go to our good stuff when circumstances happen, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So you guys are still with me?
Yeah.
See, the open area with the weeds, this is the place where we feed the most. We feed these emotions and these thoughts. We feed them the most, right?
How do we do that?
When circumstances come, right? A lot of us, what we do, and it may be just, I just know from my personal experience, right? What we do when there's adversity, when there's some type of, when your season changes,
Okay, go ahead.
right? When the storm starts to come in, right? The season changes.
Right.
We tend to feed the circumstance, right? We tend to feed that season, whatever it may be, right?
Right.
We tend to feed that more instead of going to our
Pots.
pots, our containers that has the good stuff, the peace, joy, harmony,
That is a type of
happiness.
approach. If you
Okay.
make a good approach, good things may come out of it. Make
Okay.
a bad approach, bad things come out.
We should go to sleep.
Good job. So, but to me, for me, I consider the weeds the enemy, right? Because the weeds do not contribute to our mental well-being, our mental wellness, correct? So okay, you gotta stop that. So the enemy will deceive, steal, kill, and destroy our good yield, our good harvest that's in the containers, right? So, say for instance, go ahead. Okay, I'm waiting. So say for instance, you go to your containers, your pots, right? And you take something good like happiness, right? You take your happiness, you take it out the container and you put it right in the middle of all the weeds. What will happen?
The weeds will overgrow.
Correct. All those negative emotions.
Will overtake.
Correct. The weeds will deceive, steal, kill, and destroy all of your positive good yield. Your good yield, your good harvest. Correct?
Yeah, probably.
They will. Because sometimes what the weeds will do is they'll deceive us. Right? Because they'll grow flowers. They'll make us think that they're good for us, so we can feed it, right? Sometimes our struggles and our fights, right? Sometimes they'll come in, certain circumstances will come in and deceive us into feeding it. And it's negative. It's not good for us. Is everybody still with me?
Yeah.
Good. Now, some of our weeds in our mental thought garden, some of our weeds, they have been growing for many years. They have been there for years, right?
A lifetime.
Not a lifetime, but just for a long time, And see, and I refer to those particular weeds as the aged weeds, right? The aged weeds, the mature aged weeds. And see, you can't compare it to nice fine wine because it doesn't get better over time. The weeds doesn't get better for you over time, right? And it doesn't taste good, right? Weeds don't taste good. Negative thoughts and emotions and feelings, they don't taste good, right? So they're not fine wine, they're not aged fine wine. But I refer to those as the aged weeds, right? Because with those particular weeds is that we've left them unattended for many years. We left them unattended and they became deeply rooted into the soil, into that area, right? Because we put on our invisible shield to those particular weeds. Those particular weeds represent something deep. They represent our past, our memories, our circumstances that we choose to, over the years, decided to lose our fight against them. We lost the energy to fight them, right? To remove them from our thought process, right? I consider those the mothership of weeds, right? Because what happens is they get so deep down in there, the roots, they multiply. And they cause all these other weeds to grow in this area, right? They're the root. You ever heard that saying? They're the root of the problem. Are you ready to say yes? Say okay. Are you saying something?
Yes.
Okay. Let me finish and then we can then we'll just have like an open forum. Okay, sounds good. But you gotta remember.
I hope I can still remember.
Okay, you just gotta remember. You want a notepad?
Now you can send me an email.
I can send you an email? So the negative emotions and feelings, right? Are you aware that negative emotions and feelings are bad for your health? Are you aware of that?
I've been told that. I don't know if I'm aware of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe it's good.
It affects your organs. For example, anger weakens the liver.
Wow.
Now, some of you might say, but alcohol makes it feel better. But that weakens the liver too, right?
Yeah.
Worry weakens the stomach.
Stress.
Well, no, wait, can't jump. Because see, stress weakens the heart and the brain.
Oh, boy. No, look at that.
Two problems right there with stress. Fear weakens the kidneys.
Ooh.
Okay. So again, those weeds, those negative emotions and feelings, they do not contribute any good to your physical and mental well-being and wellness. Physical and mental.
Can I ask a question?
Huh? Okay.
Okay. So, does the weeds take over the minute we're tending to our pots, or do the weeds just respond to the fact that we're dealing with our pots?
So the thing is that, see, the process of the transformative transfer, see, we're jumping ahead here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just explaining our areas in our
Okay,
garden.
okay.
So everybody's still with me, right?
Right.
We got our containers. That's our good stuff.
Right.
Right? Our positive emotions, right? That's our good yield, right? And what we want to do is we want to transfer those good positive emotions into our open field of
Right.
all those weeds. But what do we have to do first? We have to clean out all those weeds.
Yeah.
We have to clean out all those negative emotions, right? So that way when we do our transformative transfer of the good yield from the containers into the soil of our thought garden, right?
Okay.
They can get deeply rooted and prosper and grow and be fruitful and plentiful, correct? That's the goal. That's the goal.
I'll just say one thing. I'm learning something. And tomorrow morning, I'm gonna wake up different tomorrow morning. I ain't lying.
I'm
I'm
happy
learning
to
something
hear
here.
that.
I'm gonna wake up kind of different tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Man.
Thank you.
Yeah, 'cause I feel what you said when you're angry, if you start your body. Hey,
affects your body.
I'm learning something today. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Man.
So, back to our weeds here.
Okay.
So, the more we feed the weeds, right? The more we feed the weeds, the stronger the root becomes.
Oh,
And it causes the weeds to multiply, and it's harder to remove, right? Have you ever had the experience of when something comes along that you don't agree with, it's the negative thoughts and actions and feelings, it's hard to remove, right? So basically, when the season changes, when our seasons changes to gloom and rain, and the storms come, right? And the storms come. This is like in our actual real life garden. We're stepping outside our mind right now, right? We're like outside right now.
Mother nature.
Right? Right, Mother Nature. So when the rain and the storms come, that's how weeds in the actual yard, that's how they receive their food. They receive water to sustain. And it's the same thing inside our mental thought garden, right? When our storms come, right? When our storms come, when adversity comes, when struggles come, when the fight comes, right? That's when we feed those weeds the most. That's where they're getting all of their food to sustain. Because we're feeding those negative thoughts, those actions, and those feelings the most, right? Everybody's still with me.
Yes.
So, feeding the circumstance, whatever circumstance they may be, the negative circumstance, feeding into that circumstance causes us to lose our perspective on the current reality. I read an article that said negative thoughts shine a light on our unconscious mind, causing the enemy to create a whole new reality. Is everybody with me?
Yes.
I'm going to repeat that one more time. I'm going to repeat it one more time. negative thoughts shine a light on our own unconscious mind, causing the enemy to create a whole new reality. Have you ever heard of cognitive distortions?
I have, but I don't know what it means.
Good. I'm going to tell you what it means. Cognitive distortions are exaggerated or irrational thoughts, right? That convince us of something that really isn't true, right? And out of the top 4 cognitive distortions, out of the top 5, number 4 is disqualifying the positive. Disqualifying the positive. Because see, with cognitive distortions, what they do is they reinforce negative thinking. And out of the top 5, number 4 is disqualifying the positive. Let's talk briefly about number 4, the disqualifying the positive. Here's an example. Here's a short story as an example. There was a man driving down a lonely, dark country road in the middle of the night, one night, right? And he experiences a flat tire. He gets out of his he gets out of his truck with his flashlight, pulls over, first he pulls over, right? Pulls over first. And then he gets his flashlight, gets out of the truck, points the flashlight on the flat tire. Yep, definitely a flat. Points the flashlight around, complete darkness. No lights, no stores, no gas station, no homes, cabins, nothing. So he decided, okay, I'm going to have to walk to find a phone, to find civilization of some type to use their phone to get help, right? So as he's walking down the lonely dark road in the middle of the night, all by himself, just him and his flashlight, he starts thinking of his luck, of all the bad luck of that's what's happened to him, right? And then all the anxiety starts building up. And then he starts to stress. And then he starts to worry. Then he starts to get frustrated and he's angry. And he starts thinking of thoughts like, what if I just walk and I never find anyone? What if I never get any help? What if an animal comes out and attacks me? What if I just want to turn around and go back to my truck? I don't even know where my truck is. I can't see it. It's pitch dark, right? What if I just keep walking and walking and walking, right? So he's thinking of all these thoughts and he's conjuring up all these negative emotions, right? And when he looks up, he sees a light in the distance. And it's a porch light to a cabin. So his anxiety starts to fade a little bit. But as he's walking closer to the light, the anxiety starts to kick up again, right? Because after all, it's in the middle of the night. He's a total stranger, right? So he's thinking to himself, when I knock on the door, and if they open the door, whoever opens the door, they're going to be irritated. They're going to be angry that I interrupted them, that I disturbed them to use their phone in the middle of the night. Then he's thinking, who would open the door in the middle of the night anyway for a total stranger? Only a horrible person would do that. That person is going to harm me. Right? Because who would live in the middle of nowhere anyway? Not around people. They're going to do something horrible. And before he even knew it, he was so caught up in his negative thoughts, before he even knew it, he had already knocked on the door. So as the door opened, he stood there for a second and looked at the person and immediately punched the person and ran off.
Oh my God.
Again, disqualifying the positive, cognitive distortions. What it will do is it'll will give you exaggerated or irrational thoughts of something that really isn't true. Right? So here's a more real life example. Okay, here's a more real life example that everyone can probably relate to. I definitely can relate to it. Have you ever interviewed for a job, and you felt very confident about the interview. You felt very confident about the interview. You felt that you did well, you answered the questions well, you felt like, okay, I got it, I nailed it, right? I'm sure everyone has experienced that. I've experienced that.
Yeah.
I know a bunch of people have in here.
Right? But you didn't receive the job offer. For whatever reason, you didn't receive the job offer. Right? For me, when that would happen, is the first thing I would do is I would second guess myself. Right? I would second guess myself. I would second guess how I answered those questions. Like I was second guess, like, well, did I really answer those questions like I thought I did? Was I really that confident? I mean, you know, you would second guess. You start second guessing yourself. You start second guessing your answers to the questions. Like the question of, what are your weaknesses? Between me and you, I totally despise that question. That's just me. But what happens is that when we experience a situation that doesn't come into our favor, what we do is we immediately internalize our personal flaws against ourselves. Right? We immediately internalize our personal flaws as a negative against ourselves, disqualifying the whole situation. Right? We didn't look at any of the positives in any of that interview situation there, that circumstance. Right? We just immediately turned against ourselves. So, for example, in that particular situation with the job interview, not receiving the job offer, right? We didn't think about the positives. We didn't think about how we were able to meet new people, how we were able to network, how we were able to strengthen our communication skills, how we were able to strengthen our interview skills. Correct? We didn't think about any of the positives. We didn't think about how, okay, now I know how I'm going to answer that question the next time. Like, what are your weaknesses? Right? Is everybody still with me? See, I like to use the whole rearview mirror as an example of our thoughts, right? Of our mental stuff, right? Because what we tend to forget to do is we forget to glance in our mental rearview mirror to look at our accomplishments and achievements back there, right? Our accomplishment and achievements back there that brought us to this point, that brought us to that point of that interview, right? We got ourselves to that interview. We did that. We sat through that interview. Nobody else didn't sit with us through that interview.
That's right.
Right? But we don't look at that. We automatically look at our personal flaws. Right? See, you have to think, like when you're driving a car, right? When you're driving a car, you look in your rearview mirror. You just glance in it to prepare for the road ahead. Correct? Correct? And to prepare you to switch lanes.
Right.
And that's the same for us mentally. We only need to look in our rearview mirror, in our past, to prepare us for our future, for the road ahead. To prepare us for any seasons that may be coming, any struggles or fights that may be coming, so we can prepare accordingly. Right? Prepare our thoughts. Prepare mentally accordingly. Right? Have you noticed that a car's rearview mirror is much more smaller than the windshield?
Yeah, that's
Because our past is that much more smaller than our future. Right? Our past is that much more smaller than our future. Our past is not as important as where we're going. Correct?
Yep.
Because now we're getting back to our thought garden. Now we're going to get back to our thought garden. Because now this is when we're going to start putting in some work. Right? We're going to put in some work here. So we need to start beginning to remove the weeds so we can do our transformative transfer of all of our good stuff in the containers into the ground so they can be fruitful and plentiful, correct?
Correct.
So let's talk about the mothership of weeds. Remember the ones that's deeply rooted down in there, right? Because see, we're going to need a different approach for those particular weeds. We just can't remove them and poof, they're gone. Right? We're going to need a different approach for those because those are deeply rooted. Those are sturdy.
Right.
Right? With those particular weeds, it's simple. You simply just acknowledge them for what they are. They're bad. They're negative. They're no good. They do not contribute to our good yield. They do not contribute to our mental well-being and wellness. They're bad. They're bad weeds, right? You acknowledge them for what they are. You don't feed them and you move on. Eventually, they die. So it's similar to the Roundup weed killer, correct? Same process, right? So in our actual real life, Mother Nature outside, right? In our actual real life, what we do with the Roundup weed killer, we see the weed, we acknowledge it, we spray it, we leave it, it dies. Hey, that's all you got to do with those weeds. Stop feeding it. Stop feeding it, right? And then you remove all those other weeds that you can remove. And now since we've removed the weeds, still with me? Since we've removed the weeds and we are no longer feeding the mothership of weeds, now we need to rototill. We need to rototill our soil, right? We need to rototill our soil to prepare the ground for our good yield, our good harvest, our perfect emotions and thoughts and actions, correct? And the benefits to till our our garden, to till our soil, our garden, is to break the soil up.
Right.
That's one. To eliminate the weeds. Two. Right? And three, to deliver nutrients deep into the ground. Right?
Okay.
Because we need our land to be loose. So when we put our good yield, our good seeds, our good plants, our good thoughts and emotions and feelings, they'll grow and spread and be fruitful and plentiful, right? And once we rototill our soil, right, to make it deeply rich and plentiful, this is where we replant our good yield that we've compartmentalized, right? All those good stuffs, the perfect emotions, the sweet emotions and feelings, right? This is where we do our transformative transfer. Because again, our good yield is the way. That's the self-love, the self-confidence, the encouragement, the acceptance, right? It's all the good, sweet stuff, right? And you have to remember when you guys are still visualizing me, right? When you remove your good yield out the container, you got to break up the soil at the bottom. Just like when you go to Home Depot and Lowe's and you buy your flowers and when you transfer them out the store-bought container, you break up the bottom, right? So that way the good stuff, when you plant it into the soil, it'll breathe life. Those roots will breathe life into the soil and be plentiful, correct? Yeah. Now that we've finished our transformative transfer, right? We finished our transformative transfer. You guys are still with me. We've replanted all of our good stuff, right? We need to acknowledge them for what they are. They're our sweet stuff. That's the sweet spot, right? That's our good, positive stuff, right? Emotions and feelings and actions, right? So once we acknowledge them, we need to feed them. We need to give them nutrients.
So they'll take root.
Right. We need to give them nutrients so they can be plentiful. right? So basically, we need to give them our mental, spiritual miracle grow. You guys know about miracle grow, right?
Absolutely.
Basically, fast.
I'm gonna tell you where you're gonna get it from. So you have two nutrients, two main nutrients, and you're gonna mix them up together, right? You're gonna combine them. But the first nutrient is mindfulness. That's your first nutrient. See, mindfulness is the process of awareness. It's a process of awareness for the present moment and an exploration of emotions and feelings without judgment. Right? Mindfulness requires us to pay attention to any experience or feeling, whether negative or positive, right? With acceptance and without attacking. That's mindfulness. Our second key nutrient is self-compassion. Self-compassion, right? See, self-compassion gives us the capacity to comfort and soothe ourselves, right? To motivate ourselves with encouragement. See, most of us demonstrate compassion for a friend or a loved one when they are experiencing tough times.
Right.
But when we ourselves are experiencing tough times, we tend not to show ourselves the same level of compassion. Correct?
Correct.
Correct. We become critical and judgmental. We tend to internalize our personal flaws against ourselves. We attack ourselves, right? So that's why I said that all of our good stuff has been in the containers. Because we tend to immediately attack ourselves, right? Basically, with the two nutrients combined, right, we use mindfulness to bring awareness and presence of our emotions without judgment, right? And then we combine it. We combine it with self-compassion to support and comfort those emotions. Still with me? Still with me?
Can you repeat that last part?
So basically your two nutrients, mindfulness and self-compassion, right? That part? So mindfulness. Mindfulness, you bring it to make yourself aware. Let me go back. Basically, we use mindfulness. Yeah, basically we use mindfulness to bring awareness and presence of our emotions. Right? Our emotions without judgment. Without judgment. And then we combine it with self-compassion to soothe and comfort those emotions, our emotions. The final step of our transformative transfer is understanding. Right? Is understanding. Understand that there will be times. There will be times in our newly reconstructed, restored area in our mental thought garden. There will be times where you will see a weed sprout up next to your good yield. Right?
Always.
Yeah. You will see that. Because see, what happens is, like in our real life Mother Nature, real world out there, right? What happens is when the wind, when it starts getting breezy, and the wind starts picking up, right? And it starts getting real windy, what will happen is, in our real life nature garden out there, is the wind will pick up the debris of the weeds, the shavings of the weeds, and it'll drop them in your garden. That's how weeds pop up anyway inside your garden, in your real life garden, right? And it's the same for us in our mental thought garden. It's the same for our mental thought garden, right? When our season starts to change, when we start to see that forecast coming through, and it starts getting breezy, right? You know something's about to start stirring up, right? The wind's stirring up. All it's doing is stirring up the debris, the shavings from the weeds that you removed, and it lands right by your good yield to deceive you into feeding it. So when that storm comes, when it finally hits, you'll feed that weed instead of the good stuff, right? So we need to be aware. Again, mindfulness, right? We need to be aware of when our emotions, right? When our emotions starts to change, when our thoughts starts to change, we need to be aware. And then combine it with that self-compassion, correct?
Correct.
See, I want to remind everyone that we did not begin with all these weeds. We didn't begin with them. We didn't begin with all the struggles and the fights and the negative thoughts and emotions. We didn't begin with those. We planted them there over time with all those circumstances, right? We planted them there. And see, our thoughts are in our control. Our thoughts are in our control. And no one can control it unless we allow it. Because see, in our mental thought garden, we are the great certified master gardeners in our thought garden. No one else. We are the certified master gardeners, right? Aristotle. A quote from Aristotle. Aristotle said, "It is during our darkest moments that we most..." I'm going to say it again. Aristotle said, "It is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light." We cannot control our seasons. We cannot control our storms. However, we can control how we prepare and how we live through them. Correct?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
It's important for everyone to know in this room today that we are resilient, right? We are relentless, right? Because what we did is we made it through. If we looked in our mental rearview mirror, what we did is we made it through. We made it through all those storms, all those hurricanes, all those horrid seasons, because we are here now, correct?
Amen.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely right.
There was a story. Don't you guys love my stories? There was a story of a daughter one day telling her mother about how hard life was for her, right? And the daughter was expressing to her mother that she was tired of the fight, she was tired of the struggle, and she just wanted to give up because it seemed like as soon as one problem was solved, another one would come, and then another one would come, and she was just tired of the fight. So what the mother did is she listened, and she went into her kitchen, and she took 3 pots. She filled them up with water and put them on high heat on the burner. And once the pots came to a boil, she went to the pots and she put eggs in the first pot. Sorry, no, you can say yeah. Okay. She put eggs in the first pot, she put carrots in the second pot, and she put coffee beans in the third pot. And about 20 minutes later, the mother got up and she went to the pots, she spooned out the carrots, she took the eggs out, spooned out the eggs, and then she spooned out the coffee into 3 separate bowls. And she brought her daughter closer and she asked her daughter, "What do you see?" The daughter said, "Carrot, eggs, and coffee." The mother said, "Touch the carrots and tell me what you feel." The daughter touched the carrots and she noted that the carrots were soft. The mother told her, break the egg and tell me what you see. The daughter broke the egg, peeled away the shell, and saw a hard-boiled egg. The mother then told her, sip the coffee. And the daughter smiled as she tasted the rich aroma of the coffee. And then what the daughter did is she asked her mom, what does it all mean? Her mother explained that each of these objects have faced the same adversity, but reacted differently. See, the carrot went in strong and hard, right? But after sitting through the hot boiling water, the pain, it became soft and weak. The egg had went in fragile with a fluid inside. But after sitting through the heat and the boiling water, it became hard and stiff. The coffee beans, now see, the coffee beans were unique because after sitting in the same boiling water, it changed the water. The mother turned to her daughter and said, which one are you? When adversity knocks at your door, how do you handle it? Are you a carrot, egg, or a coffee bean? Right? What was the lesson learned from that story? What was the lesson learned? We need to ask ourselves, which one are we? When adversity knocks at our door, how do we handle it? Are we the carrot that seems strong and hard? Right? But then after pain and adversity, we become weak and soft? Are we like the egg, where we have a pliable heart, but then after sitting through the pain and adversity, we become hard and stiff, hardened? Or are we like the coffee bean?
Yep.
See, I told you the coffee beans are unique. Because what they do is they change the very same circumstance that brought the pain. See, when the water gets hot, the coffee releases. It releases a fragrance and flavor of life. It changes the surroundings of their adversity. Right? So again, are we the coffee? Are we the carrot, egg, or coffee bean? Right? That's what I ask my sister when she calls and complains to me. Are you the carrot, egg, or the coffee bean, Ashley? That's why you like this one, Ashley. She's gonna watch this tape.
She really is the coffee bean.
She's gonna watch this tape.
I will be.
Okay, so I always end my talks with action items. I like action items because I do the action items as well. So it's not like I say it and I expect for you to do them, but I do them as well. Because my thing is that I'm also on a journey. I have the thoughts where I need to, I compartmentalize my good stuff too, right? And I feed the negative instantly when circumstances happen. So that's me personally. So I like action items because it gives me goals. So my action item is the mindfulness challenge, right? And the reason why we have the mindfulness challenge is so we can start to become aware of our thoughts and our actions. So that way we can start the process of the transformative transfer, of transferring all that good stuff to be forefront in our mind so we can feed the good stuff the most. Correct? So the first part of the challenge is goals. Zoe and John, They've been working with you guys on goals. So hey, you guys have already started the first part of the challenge. Hey, you're already halfway there, right? The second part of the challenge is when we feel the presence of negative emotions, thoughts, or actions coming to. Basically, when we start to feel that breeze, that our season is about to change and something is coming. Something is coming. Sometimes you can feel it, right? You feel it in your bones. Or you get that inner feeling like something's coming, right?
Storm coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
So when we start to feel the presence, I want you guys to practice the pause exercise. Right? So the pause exercise, I'm going to explain and then we're going to do it together. The pause exercise is when you feel the presence of negative emotions coming in, you take a moment. You pause your actions and your thoughts with the focus of awareness. You're aware of the thoughts still, you're aware of those actions, but you pause, take a moment. Close your eyes.
Woosah.
Close your eyes. Put your hand on your chest. Take a few deep breaths. Right?
Right.
Few deep breaths. And then you acknowledge your thoughts. Right? You acknowledge those thoughts. And then you say to yourself 3 times, may I love and accept myself as I am. May I love and accept myself as I am.
Of course.
May I love and accept myself as I am. And then you think of 3 positive thoughts. 3 positive thoughts. See, with this challenge, we could begin to train ourselves to flip the script. We could begin to train ourselves of the transformative transfer. Because what's happening is that with the pause exercise, you acknowledge, you're aware that those negative thoughts and emotions and actions are there. But you're going to pause them. Tell them, I'm going to pause you. I'm going to tell myself, may I love and accept myself just as I am. And I'm going to come back with 3 positive thoughts. I want to end on a quote from Wilford Arlen Peterson. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. As a single footstep will not make a path on earth, so a single thought will not make a pathway in the mind. To make a physical path, we walk again and again. To make a deep mental path, we must think over and over again the kind of thoughts we want to dominate our lives.
Amen.
So, with that, let's make the path we want. Correct? All right.
Thank you.
So I want to, again, thank everyone here for your time today. Thank you for allowing me to speak. This is definitely my move up moment for the week.
Please come back again.
You want to, did you make a mental note? Okay.
Everything that you were saying to us about this, about trying to lead us, I could truly relate to that because it's something that I value every day in my life with my people that I deal with. I deal with different people, a lot of people, right? So I can relate to that because I'm fighting you know, for that. And I use positive sometimes when the negative come around. I use positive to kind of, you know, get rid of that negative. Like you say, they want, you know, bad apple. Just fall off the rest of them, run all the rest of them.
But that's only if you allow. But that's only if you allow.
Yeah, only if you allow. And that's why I recognize it and I kind of separate myself from it. You know, and you'll be better off that way in life. And then to get to it. That was great though.
I had a question. That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you. So you had us repeat one phrase a few times. So you could tell us that and maybe some other positive like pathways that you're creating, some mantras or phrases you're using to create positive mental pathways?
So the phrase is may I love myself just as I am. I said as I am before, but it's may I love myself just as I am. Today I love myself just as I am. You say it 3 times.
May I love myself just as I am.
Just as I am. You say it 3 times. But remember, the most important thing, you got to do the first part. When you feel the negative emotions or feelings, you have to take a moment. Take a moment, pause. Pause those thoughts and those actions.
And I know something about you said something about your body.
Yeah.
Different problem about your body, being angry, blah, blah, this and that.
Right.
Yeah.
I know something about that.
Yeah. So with the pause exercise, you got to make sure the first part is to pause those. Like you just can't, you feel negative emotion coming, you're like, okay, you know what? May I love myself just as I am. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. You gotta, you know, get into almost like meditate. Meditate, right? You gotta meditate. You're aware of those thoughts and those emotions. Do not attack yourself for negative thoughts and emotions. Don't attack yourself. It's without attacking, without judging, right? You're aware of them. You're gonna pause them. Take couple of deep breaths, right? Deep breaths. Because what you want to do is you want to breathe life. You want to breathe in all that positive stuff, right? Breathe it in. Put your hand to your chest, and then say to yourself, may I love myself just as I am. 3 times.
Okay, so as we're trying to work on our garden, as we're trying to pull the weeds out, as we're trying to put the good things in the containers, when we see toxicity coming our way, okay, meaning a person, some kind of event, or something along those lines, and we see that toxicity is going to be detrimental to our health, such as me, I have high blood pressure.
I do too.
Yeah, it can be really detrimental to me.
It can.
So when we see that, is it best for us to pause, engage, and tell or relay that situation that I find this to be extremely toxic and I don't want to take it in? Is that our right to relay that?
Correct. Now, I don't know. Don't relay it to the person.
No.
You relay it to yourself.
Okay.
Because most importantly, you need to take care of yourself.
Okay.
Not worry about the other person, because that other person that's coming with that toxicity,
Yeah.
they're not contributing to your mental well-being, right?
All right.
Correct. So why would you share that with them? You share. You take care. You take care of yourself. So you tell yourself when you see it coming or you see that person coming. Everyone has that person, right? Like I have a couple of people at work where I just need to take a moment, right? And you just need to pause and tell yourself, may I love myself. You just take a moment to pause, and you take those deep breaths, right? And you tell yourself, the mantra, may I love myself just as I am, 3 times, and then you think of 3 positive thoughts. 3 positive thoughts. And then you deal with that person. I guarantee you'll be able to deal with the person a little bit better. I can't say it'll be like exceptional, but it'll be a different approach to that person.
By taking care of yourself.
You got to take care of yourself.
Start there first, yeah.
Because that person that's coming to you, they're not thinking about your high blood pressure.
Right, true.
Okay. You got to think about
That's
yourself.
right, you got the point.
That's a good point.
Most people don't know.
All right, thank you so much, Alicia. Round of applause.